There it is. Okay. It wasn't responding. That was bad. All right. So let's talk about the Notre Dame run defense versus the USC run offense. And look, USC isn't trying to run the ball, but they still average more yards than Notre Dame does when they're running the ball offensively, because Notre Dame doesn't even to run the ball right now for over 100 yards a game, and USC is at least at 129.8. But that still puts them, 93rd in the country. Notre Dame does a pretty good job of stopping the run up to this point. They're 37th in the country in that regard. Middle of the pack-ish in yards per attempt, but they don't allow a whole lot of touchdowns. But again, this isn't USC's strength. It's more of a throw, run it once, throw. Okay, we'll run it again for fun, kind of a situation. So that's why that tackle for loss number isn't high, because they just don't run it that often. And so, your thoughts on USC's run game?
Yeah, the mentality. We kind of talked about it yesterday. Just the mentality of the entire team is really soft when you watch them play. And the offensive line is no different than the defensive line. They had to move a lot of their tackle recruits to the inside, to the guard position. So their guards are really not your traditional big USC guards. And then they don't have that, USC usually has an athletic, left tackle that the NFL scouts have been talking about for 2 or 3 years and can't wait to get their hands on. That's just not the case. They do have talent with Malapai and Keontae Ingram, the transfer from Texas, at the running back position. A lot of speed there. But like you said, Graham Harrell just hasn't committed to the run game. And, Graham Harrell came from wide open, throwing the ball 60 times when he quarterbacked at Texas Tech. So, yeah, his mentality is, I have all of this talent at wide receiver. Why would I not use that the majority of the time? So it's all about being physical with them and setting the line of scrimmage on the other side of the ball, which I feel like Notre Dame is going to be able to do in the run game. They've been able to do it. They did a great job against Wisconsin, which has a pretty good offensive line. So if they can do it against Wisconsin, I feel very confident they can definitely do it against this Trojan offensive line. And once again, it's about being physical, getting out in front, and forcing them to be one-dimensional. And they might be one-dimensional without you forcing them to be one-dimensional.
Right, exactly.
That's what Graham Harrell wants to do. And, it's almost like you ever play a video game. The easiest thing to do is just line up in 4 wide and just throw the ball all over the field.
Yep.
Right. Not too many people want to sit there and just run I formation and take their time running down the field. They want to score touchdowns. Graham Harrell and USC, they've always been an explosive offense historically. They've always had great wide receivers. They've always had great quarterbacks. But right now, I think they're going into a period where the talent isn't the same as it's been. And 3-4 years, 2017, it was all about Sam Darnold. Right, and they had that great offense. And you remember when they came in here with Sam Darnold, from the first snap, Notre Dame punched them in the mouth.
It was great.
And, oh, man, USC was never in the game.
Nope.
And they have the same type of mentality, but I don't think they have the same type of offensive talent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that if Notre Dame if they can replicate what they did that day, the day that you're talking about, it's going to be game over from the get-go.
And it should be, yeah.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, obviously defensively, I mean, they absolutely punched him in the mouth, and it was a beautiful thing. And then the offense just hammered USC in the run game, and they, it was what we talked about yesterday, coming out with a physical mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, USC just quit. They flat out quit that game, and I'm not saying that Notre Dame has the offensive line or that, to do that to USC. But the difference is that USC team was way better than this USC team.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it needs to be the level that Notre Dame was then for them to quit now. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And once again, we just go back and harken back to the lack of physicality. But that's something we have said about Notre Dame during the first half of the season, that they haven't been as physical Well, at least on the offensive line. The defensive line has been physical, and when they needed to be quick, slashing, slanting, they've been able to do that.
Right.
And not just the multiplicity of the defenses and the talent that they have up front to be able to do that. Because when you look at Notre Dame, they really don't have that stud nose tackle, defensive tackle that's just 350 pounds, a Sam Adams type, space eater that frees up everything for the linebackers. And Marcus Freeman has had to change game plans week to week and give his defensive front different tasks to be able to be successful depending upon the team they face. And as I said, this is where they can kind of get into a groove, knowing these are the teams we're going to be facing in the second half of the season. It starts with USC. We're going to get after Keelan Slovis, get him off his mark, break up the timing. Look, in the running game, it's all about Keontae Ingram. He's the main guy. Melepeai is the switch-up, change-up guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. You definitely have to watch him on arrow routes and some quick screens. Very shifty. Can make you miss in space. Our linebackers and our defensive backs have done a pretty good job tackling.
I agree.
As I said before, you saw when they got to Virginia Tech, I thought that unit was a little bit more tired than they were in any game before that. So we saw some missed tackles. We saw some missed opportunities. Big third down, missed tackle by Cam Hart there. And that allowed them to go down and score on that drive. I think those type of things will get sewn up, and we'll see a more rejuvenated and refreshed defensive unit. And they're gonna be hungry. I really think this defensive front is going to be hungry. And this rushing game for USC is in trouble. You look at the numbers, 129 yards per game, and that's against, if you commit to the run in the Pac-12.
Yeah, you could be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because every defense is about speed. Every defense in the Pac-12 is about speed. I think the biggest front is Utah, I believe, and they have one of the best rush defenses in the Pac-12. Washington traditionally is pretty good against the run. But other than that, if you commit to the run in the Pac-12, you can be successful. I just don't think USC wants to commit to it. That number should easily be about 160 based upon the talent they have at the running back position. They should easily have 160 yards per game. Now, the 4.5 yards per attempt is pretty good, but that goes to a lot of teams. They go 3-4 wide. A lot of teams like to double Drake London.
Sure. And
then they keep their safeties back. So that 4.5 is kind of skewed based upon the fact how teams have been able to or have chosen to attack them and keep the ball in front of them and not allow USC's wide receivers to just take over the game. But even still in that 4.5 should probably be in the 5.5, 6 range. Honestly, if the offensive line was a little bit better.
Right.
And the offensive line has struggled because, like I said, they're a little smallish from guard to guard. And they're not really able to dominate like they've been able to dominate in previous years. So it looks good being at 4.5 yards per carry, but there's no true commitment to the run game from the USC offense.
Totally deceiving. Completely agree with you. If they pick their spots better in the run game, that you're right, these numbers would be immensely better, right? Yeah. And you don't even have to be predominantly run to get those numbers better. You just got to pick your spots a little bit better. And I don't even think that they do that very well, to be honest with you. So, but you're right. I mean, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here where I will take Notre Dame here for the advantage, just because from a simple fact that, number one, Notre Dame has been good against the run, and number two, USC just doesn't care about the run game. And so it's advantage Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, absolutely advantage Notre Dame in this situation. And you look at even at the tackles for loss allowed, that's skewed. I mean, because the opportunities aren't there.
Right, exactly.
The opportunities aren't there. And yeah, you just look at this. My man, Vince, I've watched this USC offensive line, and I'm so disappointed because I was really looking forward to Notre Dame facing an agile offensive line that would come at them different ways within a game, right? So we can come out and we're going to run power this series, but then we're going to come out and finesse you the next series and give Notre Dame different looks. And I wanted to see how Notre Dame will react to that. And that's just based upon traditionally what USC has been able to do. You go back to the days where they could come out and pound you with a Lindell White.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
then they could go multiple, put Reggie Bush in the slot and then hit you. They could even do that with Sam Arnold and the running backs they had there. Sam Arnold and the running backs they had when he was there.
Right.
Now it's not the same. So, you really won't get to see Notre Dame go up against the traditional tough USC offensive front. So Notre Dame should definitely dominate, and they have the advantage here with the run defense against their rush offense.